I stood at the back of the funeral home, fixing my collar for what must have been the 10th time. The place was beautiful. Helen would have loved it. White lilies everywhere, her favorite church songs playing softly. The afternoon light coming through the colorful glass windows, making pretty colors on the shiny wooden benches. Everything was perfect. Everything except the 3 empty seats in the front row. I checked my phone again. Nothing. I had sent messages 2 hours ago, then an hour ago, then 30 minutes ago. The funeral was supposed to start at 2. It was now 2:15. Mr. Patterson, the funeral director came over quietly, looking sorry for me. Should we wait a few more minutes? I looked at those empty seats again and felt something break inside my chest. No, I heard myself say. Let's begin. My daughters weren't coming. Charlotte was in Vancouver. Dad, I'm so sorry, but I'm in the middle of a big business deal. The Tokyo office needs me on a video call at exactly this time. I can't change it. You understand, right? Mom would understand. Victoria was in Montreal. Papa, I have to be in court. I've been getting ready for this case for 8 months. The judge won't change the date. I'll fly out next weekend, I promise. Rebecca was in Calgary. Daddy, I'm the main speaker at a meeting. There are 400 people signed up. I can't just not show up. I'll visit soon. I'm so sorry. Too busy. All 3 of them too busy to say goodbye to their mother. I sat through the entire funeral in a fog. Helen's sister Gloria sat beside me, holding my hand. Our neighbors from down the street, the Kowalskis, were there. Helen's book club friends. My old co-workers from the school where I'd taught for 30 years. Even some of my former students, now in their 40s, had come to say goodbye. But not our daughters. After the funeral, people came up to say kind things. I heard myself thanking them, accepting their hugs, but I wasn't really there. I kept looking toward the door, some foolish part of me hoping one of them would rush in, out of breath, full of apologies. They never did. That night I sat alone in our house in Edmonton. Not our house anymore. My house now. The silence was terrible. For 42 years, Helen had filled this place with life. Her laughter, her terrible singing while she cooked, the sound of her reading glasses clicking against the kitchen table when she worked on her crossword puzzles. Now there was nothing. My phone buzzed. 3 messages, all within minutes of each other. Charlotte. Dad, I'm so sorry I couldn't make it. How was the funeral? Send me photos. Victoria. Papa, thinking of you today. Love you. We'll call soon. Rebecca. Daddy, hope everything went okay. Text me when you can. I stared at those messages for a long time. Then I turned off my phone. The next morning, I met with Eleanor Morrison, Helen's lawyer and friend of over 20 years. She'd asked me to come to her office on Jasper Avenue. Thomas, Eleanor said, sliding a thick envelope across her desk. Helen left very specific instructions. I know about the will, I said. We went over it together last year. This is different. Eleanor's expression was hard to read. She updated everything 3 months ago. She didn't want you to know until after the funeral. Something in her tone made me sit up straighter. What do you mean? Eleanor opened the envelope and pulled out several documents. Helen set up a trust, a very specific one. The bulk of her estate, about $12 million from her father's investments and her own business, is for your daughters. $12 million. Helen's father had been a successful mining executive, and Helen herself had built a successful consulting business before retiring. I'd always known my wife had her own money, but I'd never paid much attention to the exact numbers. We'd kept our finances partly separate, as she'd gotten most of it before we married. However, Eleanor continued, there are conditions, very strict conditions. What kind of conditions? All 3 daughters must return home to Edmonton. They must live in the family house for 90 days. During this time, Helen has left them 90 letters, one to be opened each morning. Each letter has specific tasks they must complete that day. If any daughter leaves early, if any daughter fails to complete a task, if any daughter refuses to participate, the entire inheritance goes to the Canadian Cancer Society. I stared at her. Helen never mentioned this to me. She wanted it to be a surprise. She said you'd try to talk her out of it. Eleanor's expression softened. Thomas, she knew about your heart condition. She knew you didn't have long to wait for surgery. She wanted to make sure the girls came home before it was too late. My hand went automatically to my chest, the irregular heartbeat. Helen had been the only one who knew how serious it was. I'd been on the waiting list for a procedure for 8 months now. "There's more," Eleanor said. "You get the house no matter what happens. You also get $2 million, your pension, and Helen's life insurance. You're taken care of whether the girls follow through or not." "When do they need to do this?" "The 90 days must begin within 1 week of today. They have until next Monday to arrive. I've already sent them each a registered letter with the details." I drove home in a daze. 90 days. 90 letters. Helen, what were you thinking? That evening, my phone started ringing. Charlotte called first. "Dad, what is this? I just got a letter from Mom's lawyer. Is this some kind of joke?" "It's not a joke." 90 days, Dad. I can't take 3 months off work. I'll lose my job. I'm up for senior partner next year." "Then you'll lose your job." There was a long silence. "How much is the inheritance?" I closed my eyes. 12 million, split 3 ways. Another silence, longer this time. 4 million each? If you complete the 90 days, all 3 of you. If any of you leave, none of you get anything. Jesus! I could practically hear the calculations running through her head. Okay, I'll talk to my firm. Maybe I can work from home for some of it. No working from home. Your mother was very clear. You have to be fully present. Charlotte made a sound of frustration. "This is insane. Mom can't just control our lives from beyond the grave." "She already has. You have until Monday to decide." Victoria called 20 minutes later. "Papa, this is crazy. I have cases scheduled through March." "Then reschedule them." "For 90 days? Do you know what that would do to my reputation, to my clients?" "I know what missing your mother's funeral did to mine." That silenced her. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "That's not fair, Papa. Your mother left you $4 million. She's asking for 90 days in return. You tell me what's fair." Rebecca was the last to call, well past midnight. "Daddy," her voice was thick with tears, "I got the letter. I don't understand. Why would Mom do this?" Of my 3 daughters, Rebecca had always been the most sensitive. She was also the one who'd called the least over the past 5 years. "Your mother loved you," I said quietly. "All 3 of you. This was her way of giving you something." "By bribing us to come home?" "By giving you a reason that you'd actually accept." Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. "You think we wouldn't have come otherwise?" "You didn't come for the funeral, sweetheart." I heard her breath catch. "That's not fair. I had work obligations, professional obligations." "I know. And 90 days from now, you'll have $4 million and whatever's left of your father." "Don't say that." "It's true. I'm 63 years old with a bad heart. Your mother knew I might not have much time left. She wanted you girls home while you still had a chance to say goodbye to both of us." Rebecca was crying now. "Daddy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't come." "Then come now. You have until Monday." They all came. Charlotte arrived on Sunday evening, pulling up in a rental car. Her fancy luggage looked out of place on our simple driveway. She'd cut her hair since I'd last seen her at Christmas 2 years ago. She looked thinner, older, more serious in her business suit, even though it was 8 at night. "Hi, Dad." She gave me a stiff hug. "Welcome home, sweetheart." She looked around the house, her nose wrinkling slightly. "It looks exactly the same." "Your mother liked it this way." Charlotte didn't say anything to that. Victoria arrived late Sunday night, driving up from the Calgary airport. She'd always been the most stylish of my daughters, and tonight was no different. Even tired from travel, she looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. "Papa," she hugged me properly, European style, both cheeks. "The house smells like Mom's potpourri." "I haven't changed anything." "I can see that." But her voice was gentle. Rebecca showed up Monday morning, just making the deadline. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect makeup smudged. She walked straight past me and went to her old bedroom without saying a word. I found her 20 minutes later, lying on her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling. "Becca?" "This room is exactly the same," she whispered. The posters, the books, even my old debate trophies. Mom never changed anything. She said she liked having something to remember when you girls were still here. Rebecca turned her face to the wall. That evening, the four of us sat in the dining room. Eleanor had come by to officially open the first letter. She placed a wooden box on the table. Inside were 90 sealed envelopes, each numbered and dated. "The rules are simple," Eleanor said. "Each morning at 8 o'clock, you open that day's letter. You must complete the task described inside before midnight. All three of you must participate in every task unless the letter says otherwise. You cannot tell me or anyone else about the task until it's completed. Any violations, any leaving, anything that breaks the spirit of these rules, and everything goes to charity. Understood?" All three of my daughters nodded, though Charlotte's jaw was tight. Eleanor handed me an envelope marked Day 1. "Thomas, you do the honors." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was Helen's handwriting, as familiar to me as my own face. "My darling girls," I read aloud. "If you're reading this, it means you've come home. I want you to know that I'm proud of you for making this choice, even if the reason isn't entirely pure. I know about the money. I know that's why you're there, and I'm okay with that, because here's the thing I've learned in 62 years of life. Sometimes people need a reason to do the right thing. Sometimes we need a push. Sometimes love isn't enough on its own, and that's okay. What matters is that you're there. Today's task is simple. I want each of you to go through this house and find 3 objects that remind you of your childhood. Bring them to the dinner table tonight and tell your father and sisters one story about each object. That's all. Love always, Mom." The room was silent. Charlotte cleared her throat. "That's it? Find some objects and tell stories?" "That's what it says," I said. "For $4 million?" Victoria laughed, but it sounded forced. "Okay, fine, easy enough." Rebecca said nothing. She was staring at Helen's handwriting, tears running down her cheeks. I left them to it and went to the kitchen to start dinner. 30 minutes later, I heard footsteps on the stairs, doors opening and closing, the sounds of my daughters moving through the house. At 6 o'clock, we gathered around the dining table. I'd made Helen's roast chicken recipe, probably badly, but the girls didn't complain. They sat there with their collections of objects arranged in front of them, like offerings. Charlotte went first. She'd chosen a wooden spoon with burn marks on the handle, a paperback copy of Anne of Green Gables, and an old Polaroid photo. "The spoon," she said stiffly, "is from when Mom tried to teach me to make her famous tomato sauce. I was 14. I kept turning the heat too high and burning everything. She was so patient, kept saying, 'Charlotte, dear, cooking is like life. You can't rush it.' I burned through 3 spoons before I got it right." "I remember that," Victoria said softly. "The kitchen smelled like burnt tomatoes for a week." Charlotte's lips twitched. "The book is because Mom read it to all of us, every summer start to finish, sitting on the porch. Even when we said we were too old for it, she'd read it anyway. Sometimes I'd pretend I wasn't listening, but I always was." She picked up the Polaroid. It showed 4 figures building a snowman in the backyard. "This is from the winter of 1998. We'd had the biggest snowfall in decades. Mom called all 3 of us out of our rooms, didn't even let us finish our homework. We spent 4 hours building the world's ugliest snowman. He had a carrot nose that kept falling off and rocks for eyes. Mom named him Herbert." "Herbert?" Rebecca laughed suddenly. "I'd forgotten about Herbert." "Mom took this picture right before Herbert's head fell off." Charlotte was smiling now, really smiling. She framed it and kept it in her bedroom for 25 years. Victoria went next. She'd chosen a dried corsage in a plastic box, a blue ribbon, and a cassette tape. "The corsage is from my senior prom. I was so excited about that dance. I'd bought this expensive dress, had my hair done professionally, but 2 hours before prom, my date canceled, just completely bailed on me. I was devastated." Victoria's voice wavered. "Mom found me crying in my room. She didn't try to convince me to go anyway or tell me that boys were stupid. She just sat with me. And then around 8 o'clock, Dad appeared in a suit. I remembered that night. Helen had practically shoved me into my old teaching blazer. Dad drove me to the dance. He walked me in, corsage and all, and danced with me. Slow dances, fast dances, everything. All my friends thought it was the sweetest thing they'd ever seen. But it was Mom's idea. She told me later that she'd always regretted not having one perfect dance with her own father before he passed away. The table had gone quiet. The ribbon is from a science fair in grade 7. I'd worked so hard on this project about bird migration patterns. I was convinced I was going to win first place. I got third. I was so disappointed that I threw my ribbon in the trash. Mom fished it out, ironed it, and put it in a frame with a note that said, "Third place today, first place tomorrow." She was right. I won first place the next year. "What's the cassette tape?" I asked. Victoria's cheeks colored. "It's a mixtape Mom made me when I went to university. It had all these songs she loved from the 70s and 80s. She wrote on the label, 'For when you're homesick.' I used to make fun of it because who even used cassettes anymore? But I listened to it constantly my first year. I still have it in my car." Rebecca was last. She'd chosen a knitted scarf, a math trophy, and a small painted rock. "I can't do this," she said suddenly. "Becca," Charlotte started. "No, I mean I can't do this without falling apart." Rebecca's voice broke. "The scarf is the first thing Mom ever knitted. It's awful. The stitches are all wrong and it's too short and the colors clash. She made it for me when I was 6 because I said I wanted to be warm like a princess. She spent 2 months making it and it came out terrible and I loved it anyway. I wore it until the yarn literally fell apart." She picked up the trophy. "This is from grade 10 math competition. Mom drove me 3 hours to Calgary for it. I came in dead last. Not just didn't win, I came in last place. I was humiliated. On the drive home, I didn't say a word. Mom didn't either. But when we got home, she'd ordered pizza and rented my favorite movie. And she said, 'You know what I'm proud of? That you tried something hard. That you showed up. That takes more courage than winning ever will.'" Rebecca's hands were shaking now. "The rock is from our last camping trip. I was 12. We went to Jasper. Mom and I painted rocks by the river one afternoon while Dad and Charlotte and Victoria went hiking. Mom painted this beautiful landscape. Mine was just scribbles, but she told me it was the most beautiful rock she'd ever seen. She kept it on her nightstand for the rest of her life." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, I haven't been home in 3 years. 3 years! The last time I saw Mom was on a video call that I cut short because I had a meeting. I didn't even tell her I loved her. I just said, 'Gotta go, Mom. Talk later.' And I hung up. And there was no later. There was no later." Charlotte reached across the table and took Rebecca's hand. Victoria took the other one. I couldn't speak. I just sat there looking at my 3 daughters, seeing them really see each other for the first time in years. "Your mother knew," I finally managed to say. "She knew and she forgave you. That's why we're all here." That night, after my daughters had gone to bed, I sat in Helen's chair and cried for the first time since she died. Day 2's letter asked them to cook Helen's tomato sauce together from scratch using her handwritten recipe. Day 3 asked them to go through Helen's closet and choose one item each to keep. Day 4 asked them to volunteer at the Edmonton Food Bank, where Helen had worked every Saturday for 15 years. Every morning we opened a new letter. Every evening we sat together and talked about what they'd done. Slowly, day by day, something began to shift. Charlotte stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes. Victoria started cooking breakfast for everyone. Rebecca spent hours in the garden restoring the flower beds Helen had planted. On day 15, the letter said, "Go to Helen's hair studio on White Avenue. Get your hair done by Sylvie, my hairdresser. Tell her I sent you. Pay for the woman behind you in line." The three of them came home laughing, sporting fresh cuts and colors, talking over each other about how Sylvie had cried when they told her Helen had passed, how she'd given them free conditioning treatments, how they'd ended up paying for 3 women's appointments and taking them all out for coffee afterward. On day 23, drive to Drumheller, visit the Royal Tyrrell Museum. Remember when we went there when you were little? Have lunch at Bernie and the Boys' Bistro. Leave a big tip. They made a day trip of it, leaving at 6 in the morning, coming home at midnight, sun-drunk and silly. Rebecca had bought postcards and insisted they all write messages to Helen, which she then mailed to our address. When they arrived 3 days later, we read them at dinner, and all of us cried. On day 37, call someone you've hurt or neglected. Apologize. Really apologize, not the quick kind. Listen to what they have to say. That evening was quiet. Each of my daughters made their calls privately. Charlotte spent an hour on the phone with a former colleague she'd thrown under the bus during a promotion battle. Victoria called her ex-husband, the divorce from whom had been bitter and full of blame. Rebecca called her college roommate, a friendship she'd destroyed when she'd bailed on being maid of honor at the last minute because of work. At dinner, none of them said much, but they looked lighter somehow. On day 52, go through the photo albums in the basement. Make copies of your favorite photos. Create an album for your father. They spent 3 days on that task, spreading decades of photographs across the living room floor, laughing and crying and arguing about which memories mattered most. They got into a huge fight on day 3 about whether to include photos from the year Victoria had dyed her hair purple, and Helen had been so upset. "Mom hated that," Charlotte said. "No," Victoria shot back. "Mom hated that I did it to rebel, but she loved that I was brave enough to be myself." In the end, they included the purple hair photos. On day 61, the letter said simply, "Rest. You've been working hard. Take today to do nothing but be together. Play games, watch movies, just be." We played Scrabble, Helen's favorite game. Charlotte won, cheating magnificently just like her mother used to do, insisting that Quixotry was totally a word. We watched The Sound of Music, which Helen had made us watch every Christmas. We ordered Chinese food and ate it straight from the containers like we had when the girls were teenagers. It was the best day I'd had in years. On day 75, talk to your father about his heart. Really talk. Ask him what he's afraid of. Tell him what you're afraid of. That conversation happened late at night, the 4 of us around the kitchen table, a pot of Helen's chamomile tea steeping in the center. "I'm afraid of dying alone," I told them. Not dying itself, just being alone when it happens. "You won't be," Charlotte said firmly. "We'll be here, Dad." "What if you're not? What if you're in Vancouver or Montreal or Calgary? Too busy again?" The words hung in the air. "We won't be," Victoria said. "Papa, I promise you we won't be too busy. Not anymore." "I'm afraid," Rebecca said suddenly, "that we'll go back to how things were. That once the 90 days are over, once we get the money, we'll all leave again and forget about this, forget about each other." "We won't," Charlotte said, but she sounded uncertain. "How do we know?" Rebecca pressed. "How do we know we won't just slip back into our old lives?" No one had an answer to that. On day 83, the letter said, "Plant a tree in the backyard. Something that will be here long after you're gone. Water it together." We drove to a nursery and spent an hour debating what kind of tree. Finally, they settled on a red maple, Helen's favorite. We planted it in the corner of the yard where she used to sit and read on summer evenings. All 4 of us took turns digging, our hands blistered and dirty, the late autumn sun warm on our backs. "We'll have to come back to water it," Victoria said, patting down the soil. "Every season," Rebecca agreed. "We'll have to check on it." Charlotte looked at me. "Dad, you'll have to send us pictures. Let us know how it's doing." "I will." The days counted down. 85, 87, 89. On the morning of day 90, I woke up to find all 3 of my daughters sitting on the porch, watching the sunrise. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked, joining them. "Last letter today," Charlotte said. "What do you think it'll say?" Rebecca wondered. "Probably something deep," Victoria said. Mom always did have a flair for the dramatic. At 8 o'clock, Eleanor arrived. She'd come every week to check on our progress, but this time felt different. She set the final envelope on the kitchen table. "This is it," she said. "Letter 90. Shall we?" My hands were steadier now as I opened it. Inside was a longer letter than usual, multiple pages in Helen's careful handwriting. "My beautiful girls," it began. "If you're reading this, it means you made it. 90 days, 90 letters, 90 chances to remember who you are beneath the job titles and the busy schedules and the carefully constructed lives you've built. I'm so proud of you. Not because you stayed, though I'm glad you did. Not because you completed the tasks, though I hope you found meaning in them. I'm proud of you because you chose to try. Now comes the hard part. Tomorrow, these 90 days will be over. Eleanor will transfer the money to your accounts, $4 million each, $12 million total. Here's what you need to know about that money. It's not from me, not really. When my father died, he left me a fortune. I never told you girls the full amount because I didn't want money to define your relationships with me or with each other. I invested it wisely. I grew it, and now I'm giving it to you. But the money isn't the inheritance. The inheritance is what you've learned these past 3 months. The inheritance is remembering that being present matters more than being busy, that family isn't something you do when you have time, it's something you make time for. The inheritance is your father. He doesn't have long, a year, maybe 2 if he's lucky. His heart is failing. He's been too proud to tell you how serious it is. Don't waste what time you have left. And the inheritance is each other. Charlotte, you're brilliant and driven, but you've forgotten how to be kind to yourself. Take some of that energy you pour into work and pour it into healing. Victoria, you're compassionate and creative, but you're so afraid of being hurt again that you've built walls around your heart. Let people in, including yourself. Rebecca, you're sensitive and thoughtful, but you're drowning in guilt. Forgive yourself. Forgive me for dying. Forgive your father for not being perfect. Forgive your sisters for being human. Forgive yourself for being human too. The money will give you freedom. Freedom to work less, freedom to visit more, freedom to build lives that have room for love and not just achievement. Please use it well. Don't go back to how things were. Don't let the busyness swallow you again. Come home. Not forever. I'm not asking you to give up your lives, but come home for Christmas, for birthdays, for no reason at all except that your father is here and your sisters are worth knowing, and life is so very short. I love you. I have always loved you, and I will love you from wherever I am now. Mom. P.S. Thomas, my darling, they won't remember to tell you this, so I will. You were the love of my life. Every day with you was a gift. Take care of our girls, and let them take care of you. You don't have to be strong all the time. I couldn't finish reading. My voice had broken completely. Charlotte took the letter from my shaking hands and read the postscript herself, her voice thick with tears. When she finished, none of us moved. Finally, Rebecca spoke. "Dad, why didn't you tell us about your heart?" "Because I didn't want you to come home out of obligation." "We should have been here anyway," Charlotte said fiercely. "We should have been here without Mom having to bribe us." "But you weren't," I said gently, "and that's okay. You're here now." "I'm not going back to Vancouver," Charlotte said suddenly. "Not full-time. My firm has an Edmonton office. It's smaller, less prestigious, but I don't care anymore. I'm transferring." Victoria and Rebecca stared at her. "Papa, I'm going to come home once a month," Victoria said. "First weekend of every month. We'll have dinner, we'll check on the tree, we'll just be together." "I'm coming every other weekend," Rebecca added. "And I'm going to call, actually call, not just text, every Sunday." Eleanor was wiping her eyes. Helen would be very happy to hear this. "When will the money be transferred?" Charlotte asked. "Tomorrow morning. Though, honestly, I don't think any of you did this for the money. Not anymore." She was right. Looking at my daughter's faces, I could see that the money had stopped mattering somewhere around day 30. That evening, we had one last dinner together before Charlotte's flight the next morning. Rebecca had made Helen's tomato sauce, and it was perfect. We toasted with Helen's favorite wine. We laughed about the terrible tasks from the early days, like when they'd had to learn to change a tire and none of them could figure it out, and we'd ended up calling a mechanic who'd laughed at us for an hour. "What was your favorite letter?" Victoria asked me. I thought about it. "The one about calling people you'd hurt. That took real courage." "Mine was the tree," Rebecca said. "I liked building something that will last." "Mine was today's," Charlotte admitted. "Getting permission to choose ourselves, to choose family. Mom gave us that." We sat on the porch long after dark, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars come out. "Do you think Mom knew?" Rebecca asked. "That we'd actually change?" "I think she hoped," I said. Hope was enough. The next morning, I drove Charlotte to the airport. At the departures gate, she hugged me tightly. "I'll be back in 2 weeks, Dad, I promise." "I know you will, sweetheart." "Thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on us. You could have been angry. You had every right to be angry. But you weren't. You just loved us and waited." "That's what parents do." She kissed my cheek and headed through security. At the last moment, she turned back and waved. I waved back. Victoria left that afternoon. Rebecca stayed 1 extra day to help me clean the house. We worked in comfortable silence, washing dishes, putting away the extra chairs we'd brought out for meals, folding the blankets. "Dad," Rebecca said as she was loading her car, "I meant what I said. Every other weekend." "I know you did." "Hold me to it. If I slip, if I start making excuses, call me out." "I will." She hugged me hard. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Becca." After she left, the house felt empty again. But it was a different kind of empty. Not the hollow, aching silence from 3 months ago. This was quieter, gentler. The silence of a home that would be filled again soon. I made myself dinner, Helen's recipe for chicken soup. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. That night, I sat in Helen's chair and opened a letter she'd left for me, separate from the girls' letters. Eleanor had given it to me on day 1, but I hadn't been ready to read it until now. "Thomas," it said, "by the time you read this, the 90 days will be over. Our girls will have remembered how to be sisters again, how to be daughters, and you'll know the truth about my plan. I didn't do this to punish them for missing my funeral. I did it to give them one more chance to know their father before he's gone, one more chance to know each other before life and distance make strangers of them, one more chance to understand that love isn't something you feel, it's something you do. They'll have the money now, they'll be financially secure, but more importantly, they'll have had 90 days of practicing presence, of choosing connection over convenience, of doing the work of love. That's worth more than any inheritance. Take care of yourself, my darling. Let them take care of you too. That's what family is for. You don't have to be strong alone anymore. Forever yours, Helen." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the wooden box with all the others. 3 days later, Charlotte called. "Dad, I spoke with your cardiologist. I want to be there for your surgery. It's scheduled for next month, right?" "You don't have to." "I want to. We all do. Victoria and Rebecca are clearing their schedules." "Sweetheart, that's not necessary." "Yes," Charlotte said firmly. "It is. It's necessary for us." They all came. All 3 of my daughters flew to Edmonton and sat in the waiting room during my 8-hour surgery. They were there when I woke up groggy and confused. They stayed for the 2 weeks of recovery, and then they went home. But they came back. Charlotte came back for Canadian Thanksgiving. Victoria came back for my birthday. Rebecca came back just because it was Sunday and she'd promised. At Christmas, all 3 of them were there. We decorated Helen's tree together. We cooked her recipes. We sang carols badly. We visited her grave and left flowers. We checked on the red maple, which had survived its first winter and was showing tiny buds of new growth. And we talked, really talked, about Helen, about the past, about mistakes and forgiveness and the future, about how hard it is to balance love and ambition, presence and achievement, being there and being successful. Mom was right. Victoria said on Christmas Eve as we sat around the tree. The inheritance wasn't the money. What was it? Rebecca asked, though we all knew the answer. This, Charlotte said simply. This right here. Years from now, when I'm gone, I hope my daughters will remember these 90 days. I hope they'll remember what Helen taught them. That being busy is easy. That being present is hard. That love requires showing up again and again, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient. I hope they'll water the red maple and think of their mother. I hope they'll cook her recipes and tell their own children's stories. I hope they'll forgive themselves for being human, for making mistakes, for needing a push to do what they should have done all along. Because here's what I've learned in 63 years. Nobody gets family right the first time. We all stumble. We all fall. We all lose sight of what matters in the pursuit of what seems urgent. But if we're lucky, we get second chances. We get 90 letters from beyond the grave. We get 3 months to remember how to love each other. And if we're very lucky, we get to see our children choose connection over convenience, choose presence over prestige, choose family over fear. Helen gave them that chance, and they took it. That's all any parent can hope for. That when we're gone, the love we left behind will be enough to guide our children home. Not to a house, but to each other. To the truth that we are all we have in this brief, beautiful, heartbreaking life. That love is not something you inherit, it's something you practice every day, in small ways and large, in phone calls and visits, in apologies and forgiveness, in showing up. That's the real inheritance. That's what Helen left behind. And as I sit here, in her chair, in our house, watching my daughter's cars pull into the driveway for another Sunday dinner, I know that her inheritance is the only one that truly matters. The money will be spent. The house will eventually be sold. But this, what we've built together over these months and years, this will last. This is what we leave behind when we're gone. Not things, but love made real through presence, through choice, through the daily decision to show up for each other, no matter how busy we are, no matter how far apart we live. That's Helen's legacy, and it's the greatest gift she could have given us.